Ohayou gozaimasu, and welcome to this sort of news section, for want of a better term. It's just been revealed the lineup for Venice this year, and as with Cannes in May, which celebrated all things Japan and Japanese, there is a strong contingent here of Japanese films premiering both in and out of competition and featuring both major directors and much lesser known directors, but nonetheless very interesting, and also major directors offering work that is for them something of a departure. In competition, we have what will probably be the most eagerly anticipated, which is Koreeda Hirokatsu's Look Back. Yes, another major European festival, another Koreeda film after the premiere of Sheep in the Box at Cannes. Here we have Look Back, a much, I think, less typical in some ways effort, but more interesting sounding. I've yet to see Sheep in the Box, but reviews were decidedly mixed. This is about manga and friendship, about two friends striking up something of a relationship over a shared love both of consuming and producing manga. Echoes perhaps of a great film, completely unheralded, completely unreleased in the West, by the great Ichikawa Jun, Tokiwa, The Manga Apartments. If it's anything like as interesting as that film, then it will be interesting indeed. We also have, that's in the major thread of works premiering in competition, as is the latest film by Tsukamoto Shinya, Mr. Nelson, Did You Kill People? The veteran director making with this film his first English language title, and in so doing completing what some have seen as a trilogy, albeit a very loose one, preceded by Fires on the Plain. I'm going to start by saying remake of the great Ichikawa Kon film. It's more of a sort of return to the original Oka Shohei novel than a direct sort of remake of Ichikawa's film. But it's a fascinating film. And then more recently, I think in 2023, Shadow of Fire, which, for want of a better companion, for those who haven't seen it, it's in tone, in narrative, broadly comparable to Grave of the Fireflies, which I take it as read that you've all seen, and probably most of you have shed a tear over. This is about Vietnam and someone growing up in a very particular sort of, I think, impoverished milieu, and going to fight in Vietnam and suffering in all kinds of ways. So it's a very interesting sort of loose, perhaps conceptual trilogy around, if we're going to see these works as linked, around different wars, yes, but different ways that people are impacted by war. These are works about the sort of aftermath, the consequences of war, more than they are, deep dives into the trenches or the battlefields. So, you know, this is eagerly awaited. I think both Fires on the Plain and Shadow of Fire are fascinating films. Tsukamoto really has developed over the past 10-15 years into a director that I think, judging from his earlier works, few would have seen. But he really has sort of shed the skin of his earlier cult works and stepped up into much more upscale features, but very piercing, very dynamic, dramatic, thematically wide-ranging ones. So I think we can comfortably place him among the key filmmakers of the last, let's say, 30 years, more now, if we couldn't before. Out of competition, we have interesting looking documentaries. We have a documentary on kabuki by none other than Miike Takashi, who has steps outside of fiction before, but very sporadically. I don't know anything about the film, but I think there is, with Miike, the sort of the grandiloquence of his style, the sort of frenetic, mannered, heightened aspect to his filmmaking. I don't say any of those things pejoratively. Actually, kind of owes something to kabuki. Not perhaps in any direct or obvious way, but I think there is a sense in which the sort of stylistic jouissance, shall I say, of kabuki kind of looms large in one way or another over Miike's career. So this feels like a kind of a logical step. So watch this space, should be fascinating. Quite when, and indeed if, we get to see it is very much up in the air. But, you know, fingers crossed. And lastly, we have a new film by Eric Shirai. Who? I hear you all shouting at me. Well, someone who's worked in various roles, not a very experienced documentary filmmaker as yet, but the maker, almost 10 years ago now, I think, in 2015, he made a documentary about sake makers and the craft, the passion, the work that goes into being a producer of Japan's sort of premium alcoholic beverage. Although this is perhaps something that foreigners like to imagine. I think in most bars, certainly in Tokyo, you're more likely to find Japanese drinking whiskey. But nonetheless, we all know what sake is, even if we don't know what it tastes like. He returns to the director's chair with the documentary Spirit Weighs Nothing, which is about sumo wrestlers. The reason this is interesting and very timely is that sumo wrestling is right now kind of finding something of a sort of transnational, international visibility. Here in the UK, where I am, we've had sumo tournaments, fairly cosmetic ones, staged more to, you know, play up to what people imagine they know about this sport, this art in many ways. But nonetheless, it was, it did find an audience. And I was listening to a sports journalist on the radio not too long ago, maybe last month, talking about how he had put together a feature on sumo wrestling and how he'd spent a lot of time with sumo wrestlers, and he was full of praise and full of surprises about what he'd learned about, you know, the life, the day-to-day regimes, what have you, about sumo wrestlers. I believe this film, the title refers to the fact of spirit being more important than body. Everyone, you know, it's something of a cliche, a jokey cliche about, well, you know, I would like to be a sumo wrestler. I'll just eat myself to, you know, 300 pounds and voila, you know, sporting immortality will beckon me into its sweaty bosom. It, you know, unsurprisingly, that is absolutely not the case at all. And it looks like this is a documentary that that sort of aims to, in various ways, you know, dig beneath this received wisdom, and as I understand it, looks at different wrestlers at different stages of their careers. So, you know, those who've reached the pinnacle of the sport, those just beginning, and those sort of on the way up. So promising. All in all, I think I am very interested in seeing all of these films. There are, in competition this year, several major directors. There's a new film by Werner Herzog, premiering in competition, which has the headline-grabbing title, Bucking Fasted. There are interesting looking films from France. There's a new film by Stéphane Brisé, who's a director who's earned his stripes without winning too much in terms of, you know, major international film festival prestige, with a film that I don't know anything about, but the title, Le Bon Petit Soldat, I think must deliberately be a nod to the Jean-Luc Godard film Le Petit Soldat, The Little Soldier. So that, you know, that might be one to watch. It wouldn't surprise me if Koreeda won. Maybe in the wake of the win at Cannes for Shoplifters, there's a sense that, you know, Koreeda has kind of received his due. So unless Look Back is incontrovertibly outstanding, then I would be surprised if it won. But it by the same token, it wouldn't surprise me either. Tsukamoto, again, he's far from a mainstay at major international film festivals. His work doesn't usually circulate in this rarefied milieu. I wonder if this being his English language debut is one reason why this is bucking to a certain extent that trend. So there's a bit of an unknown quantity here. You know, if this film gets momentum, then, you know, it wouldn't entirely surprise me. Although if I was laying my my yen on what the winner or which film or filmmaker is likely to win, I wouldn't be immediately throwing too much in the way of either of these directors. But nonetheless, I'm very interested in looking at the films, and I look forward to reporting back on how they're progressing when the festival starts. So watch this space. Thank you very much for watching this space. Like, comment, subscribe, yada, yada, yada. I'll speak to you very soon. Bye for now.
Yeah. Yes.